This episode of Subject Found is brought to you by my patrons. Thank you for all of your support, and welcome to Adam Burke, the newest patron of Subject Found. If you like this show, if you want to help me continue to do this show in future seasons, please consider becoming a patron. Every donation helps. You can do that over at patreon.com/Paul Sadie. Enjoy the episode. Subject Found is a series of found recordings from our extensive private collection. It contains some of the most mysterious and macabre files and recordings ever gathered, and we will release them for your consideration. We do not validate their claims, but share them to allow you to make up your own mind about who we are and what our collective, veritable truth actually is. Subject Found is a bi-weekly audio drama. Each episode is sequential, so if you have not listened to the earlier episodes from this season, we encourage you to do so now so you don't miss anything. Last episode, Jared Strong found peace with his estranged wife, Maria, and found out that there are legitimate threats from a mysterious group who do not want him to succeed in his pursuit to find Sasquatch. Jared also received a copy of a digital video from a father, capturing what appears to be an adult and junior Sasquatch near a high school stadium in Shelton, Washington.
Even if you're joking, once you're labeled a hoaxer, you're done.
Kurt Cobain was a genius. It doesn't matter what your particular taste in music is. It's pretty hard to deny that claim. The man changed music, something very, very few musicians ever can actually lay claim to, especially nowadays. In Aberdeen, Washington, he's much more than that, though. Here, he's a god. In this city, you don't question his brilliance or character, and here, Cobain wasn't a victim of suicide either. Oh, you didn't know that? Oh yeah, in Aberdeen, it was murder, not a suicide. For those of you who enjoy a good conspiracy story, you'd love the atmosphere here. Aberdeen is an interesting city. With barely over 16,000 people living off pretty low annual incomes, it hugs the easternmost inlet of the North Bay that stretches all the way out to the Pacific Ocean. It's a city struggling to stand up, like a toddler learning to walk and constantly tumbling over. A quick drive through it will show you a city trying to breathe life into itself and hyperventilating. But there's a certain charm to this foundation of grayness. There's a toughness to her people, a determined nature, if you will. And I respect that. I'm here today to meet an old friend. We go way back. To high school, in fact. His name is Lucas Thompson, and he's a video analyst and a freelancer to a few of the sports teams in Seattle and some corporate lackeys there, too. He's a remote worker, so he's earning Seattle wages while living on Aberdeen costs. Man's pretty smart, I will admit, though it pains me to do so. We've sort of had this testosterone-friendly rivalry thing going on since we were kids.
Hey, bud. Bring it in. How the hell are you doing?
Great, man, great. How about you?
Most excellent. I'm living in heaven. How could I not be? Come on, let's get inside. It's hot out here.
It's 72 degrees.
Beer?
Just one. I'm on the clock.
When are you not?
I'm working on that.
How are things? You doing okay?
Yeah, we're actually trying to reconcile.
No shit? Nice, man. When did that happen?
Last few weeks. Real recent. I finally pulled my head out of my ass and realized how much she gave up for me so I could do this. I've been pretty selfish.
You have.
Gee, thanks.
That's what friends are for. True friends will tell you how much you suck. Plus, I thought you were above receiving platitudes for the sake of your ego.
You're an ass.
I try. So, this video you sent me. From Shelton, huh?
Yeah, a father took it at his kid's high school game. He didn't see it until weeks later when he was watching it again and his wife pointed out the Sasquatch. What do you think?
It's an interesting video.
Interesting? That doesn't sound promising.
Listen, You know where I stand on all this stuff. We've had these conversations before. And I know you trust me enough to check my biases. But this video made it hard to do that.
What? Why?
Well, the environmental factors in the video don't help. There's light pollution from the stadium lights. There are a number of occluding objects, namely the players on that side of the field, and the fence, and, I could argue, even the backdrop. It doesn't help that we're looking across an illuminated sports field into the darkness. I wish he'd shot this during the day.
Yeah, well, I don't think he controls the school's football schedule. And hey, at least there's a video.
Don't get me wrong. This is good. Not perfect, but good. A lot better than almost 100% of all that crap you see on YouTube that claims to be genuine. I went over and over this. Sorry, bud. I love you, but I'm not putting my name on garbage.
So it's a fake?
I used my dynamical model. I used a few variations, actually. I ran a segmentation algorithm, did detection, looked for variance and intensities. I went over and over this. I'm not going to lie. I even reached out to a friend in Phoenix, another analyst, sort of my mentor. Thing is, I'm struggling with this, Jared.
Why?
Because it's legitimate.
It's funny. I've seen hundreds of people convert in the past 20 years. It's an odd thing to watch happen, really. People, especially adults, struggle to come to terms with their own conditioning, and when their percipience is challenged, reactions can be strong. Lucas's was just that. I stopped the recording because, I'll be honest, he's a close friend, and that's not something I want you to hear. Question my journalistic integrity if you must. I don't care. I won't treat a friend like that. Plus, I'm not a journalist, so I'll be able to look myself in the mirror. Don't worry. He was disturbed. We spent another hour talking about his reaction to the video's legitimacy. All the while, I tried to hide my mounting excitement. The Sasquatch in the video were real, and they were in Shelton. At least briefly. It didn't make sense. The town is way too far from the Olympics and way too populated. It's not a city by any stretch of the definition, but nearly 20,000 people is still a significant number when you're talking about this species being anywhere in the area. Why in the world would it be this close to town? Especially when it had a youngster with it. What could have possibly made it leave the safety of the mountains? I guess, as with most things, as soon as one mystery starts to be revealed, another takes its place. Questions leading to more questions. There's so much people don't understand about this creature, so much they don't want to understand. When it comes to Sasquatch, the old adage, ignorance is bliss, is truly pertinent. A lot of people don't want to understand, want to dismiss it as folklore, child's play, or the realm of conspiracy nuts. The narrative has been there since the 1960s, and it's firmly entrenched in the mindset of most adults now. Most people are equally guilty of ignorance and conflation in their efforts to not spend any time entertaining the possibilities of the world around us, and that's especially true when we're talking about the existence of Sasquatch. I've often wondered about the psychology of this phenomenon. Why are people so averse to considering the possibility that these creatures might actually exist? Are the tens of thousands of people who claim to have seen something all making this up, or is it a case of mistaken identity? Yeah, most skeptics and doubters I've talked to aren't even aware of Gigantopithecus. On one hand, they'll say there's no such creature as Sasquatch, that there's no evolutionary branch for a primate of such stature. They're so sure of it. And then I ask them about their familiarity with Gigantopithecus, and usually get blank expressions in return. I've got to admit, it's just a little frustrating having someone assert something while being ignorant of that which they speak. For those of you who don't act like that but are curious, that giant ape existed. Fossils were found in southern China and Vietnam in the 1930s by paleontologist Richard von Koenigswald. He named the species Gigantopithecus blacki, and it's estimated to be the largest ape that has ever lived at over 660 pounds. In case you weren't aware, the average adult gorilla, the males at least, weigh an average of 380 pounds. This son of a bitch dwarfed the gorillas we see today. Skull fragments, 2 jaws, and hundreds of teeth have been found so far for this massive hominid, and it's not a stretch to think about this beast migrating across land bridges from earlier epochs to reach the part of the world now known as North America. That theory ties in with the strong evidence for the correlation of larger body size with northerly distribution of species. Bergman's rule of coping with retaining body heat and dietary considerations in colder climates. All sorts of species, including man, used the various land bridges between Asia and North America over the past millions of years to migrate. When the land bridges existed, those areas had mild climates, much more mild than today. The vegetation fossil record shows that during the early to middle Miocene, there was a constant temperature corridor there. It extended across what is the Bering Strait, down through western North America and what is now the Pacific Northwest. Science becomes especially problematic for skeptics in this respect. The region was filled with broadleaf vegetation until global cooling choked it out. Fossils, like the 26,000-year-old jaw of a brown bear, extends the temporal depth of the fossil record of that species and makes good scientists, honest ones, ask questions. Red pandas, indigenous to the Himalayas, have fossil finds dating back millions of years in what is now Washington state and even as far away as Tennessee. Homo erectus cranial fragments were found in what is now Mexico's Lake Chapala. Physical anthropologists have proposed the configuration of the jaw of the Gigantopithecus in relation to the position of the neck indicate upright posture and bipedalism. Fully upright. A giant, upright, bipedal ape existing in North America. We know it lived and are sure that it lived here. The fossil record, science, shows that. Something Jeff Meldrum calls the serendipity of paleontology when he talks about distinct genetic interspecies identity and what the fossil record shows and doesn't show. Bob Martin, a paleoprimatologist, estimates 8,000 to 9,000 extinct primate species, just primate species, have yet to be discovered. Remember, skeptics, much of the land these ancient species occupied is currently under a lot of water that wasn't always where it currently is, as deep as it currently is. So before you get ready to discount these accounts, take a second to remember the world you see today isn't the world of antiquity. The absence of evidence alone is not evidence of absence. All of this challenges assertions by those who resist considering giant apes migrating, surviving, and maybe even thriving in this region of the world. Yes, a body needs to be found, I get that, but finding fossils will be tough, especially because the Pacific Northwest is especially poor for fossilization due to the moist coniferous forests and volcanic soil. The acidity of the soil here doesn't work well with preservation efforts. Legitimate hair, footprint, and video evidence of something in a very specific region of western Washington state. I'm so damn close to being able to go public with all of this. I'm just not sure that right now is the right time. Too early, and it might not be received like I need it to be taken seriously, to spur more discussion and more interest in more science. I need to have enough to motivate funding for deeper research, or all of this was for naught. But I need to do it soon. I need to bury my demons. It's time I'm real with you. I've been holding off for this long because I needed to be confident of what I was looking at, that I had enough to support my suspicions of the last 10 years. When I started investigating Sasquatch's existence, I did so for personal reasons. I hinted at those in my earlier recordings, and shit, I haven't been honest. I'm working on it. I need to if I really, truly want to respect Maria. If I want to give her all she's given me and dedicate the rest of my life to her and to us. There's only one way I can do that. I have to prove or disprove my theory about Bigfoot. See, the thing is, I'm convinced the Olympic National Park is home to this region's Sasquatch population. There may be other population centers, much fewer than many claim, but those are the very same people who are in this for the wrong reasons. There are no Bigfoot in Tennessee or North Carolina or West Virginia. No, they're restricted to this part of the country. Washington State, Oregon, and Idaho, stretching into British Columbia. That's where you'll find them, and they're not nearly as ferocious as some believe. Look at my home state. Almost 2/3 of it is high desert. Most of Washington State would not be hospitable to Sasquatch, and even the third of the state that is hospitable is way too overpopulated. The Cascadian mountain range is littered with people and outdoor resorts. The only reasonable location left for this species is in the Olympics. But that's not all there is to my theory. Even though I believe this is the only area in the state with a Sasquatch population, I also think their numbers are incredibly smaller, disappointingly small. And I believe they live in small communities, which I call herds. There are no more than a handful of Sasquatch in each herd, maybe no more than 5. One male and a female or 2 and some offspring. They don't have many offspring, only 1 or 2 over the course of their entire lives. Not exactly a positive growth species, but I guess that does make them a lot more earth-friendly than us humans. A lot of my peers don't agree with my theory, and some in the Bigfoot community have been outright hostile about it. I learned that hard lesson early on, and it's one of the main factors for my pulling back out of the community and researching on my own, with the relatively small cadre of experts I trust, like Peter and Lucas. There are so many politics in this field. It sucks the energy out of me. Made me fall out of love with doing this long ago. Honestly, I can't wait for it to be done. But that's it. I believe Bigfoot exists, and I believe they live in herds, in communities, in the Olympic Mountains in Washington. And this, all of this entire series of recordings will serve as my evidence, and then, finally, I can walk away and do something. And I can't wait to pick up Molly tomorrow. I miss that damn dog. As much as I've neglected Maria over the years, sometimes I think I've neglected Molly just as much. When I'm done with all this, I'm going to cuddle the hell out of her. And Maria, I'll do more than cuddle her. What the hell? Jesus, it's 2 a.m. Someone's at the house. I'm gonna record this, just in case. Damn it! I'm coming! I swear I'm gonna kill somebody. It's Maria. Maria!
Jared! Oh my God, Jared!
Maria, are you okay? What's wrong? It's the middle of the night.
Jared.
Did something happen?
Jared, oh my God!
What about her? Oh, Jesus, please don't tell me something happened.
That poor girl.
Come on inside. I need you to tell me what's going on, but I can't understand you.
Some men woke me up. They told me to tell you to stop. Jared, they told me to tell you to stop. And Molly, oh my God, Jared.
What is it, babe? What happened?
They had Molly, and they had Molly, and they told me to tell you to stop, or they would do worse to me, and then they shot her. They killed Molly, Jared.
And before we get to the credits of this episode, I would like to encourage everyone again, if you're enjoying this show, please consider becoming a patron. This stuff takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to write, to produce, to coordinate the logistics, all of that stuff, the voice actors. Each and every single donation goes back into this show to make it better. And I cannot thank those who do patron the show enough. I cannot possibly thank them enough. I would like to also reach out and encourage others to do so as well. The more patrons, the more time I can invest in this and possibly start another audio drama. I've got a million ideas. Patrons get early releases, they get exclusive episodes, they get short stories that are outside Subject Found and Diary of a Madman. They get all kinds of stuff, so consider becoming one. Again, I would like to thank Adam Burke, the most recent patron of the show. And you can, one more time, become a patron over at patreon.com/Paul Sading. Maybe you can't become a patron. You would love to, but you cannot. Well, there is something you can do to help the show. Rate and review it on your podcatcher. If you use iTunes at all, I prefer that because that really helps out and is where most of the audience for this show comes from. I would like to thank Rooster Han, Cykotica, Bradders3110 from the United Kingdom, and dnlburnett in Australia for your reviews of the show on iTunes or Stitcher. I would also like to thank James, who emailed me this past week about how much he's enjoying the show and very encouraging to keep going forward, that he can't leave an iTunes review because it's not compatible with his computer. Folks, stuff like that means the world. Sometimes creators, writers, audio drama people feel like they're shouting into the void. It's a very vulnerable art form to create your own stories and put them out there for the world. And if you do that in their silence, it's really discouraging. So to hear back from folks, even though it may only be a sentence or two on iTunes or Stitcher or an email, I cannot tell you how much of a difference that makes for those of us who do create. So thank you to those. Looking at the reviews, Rooster Han said, one of the best serial fiction podcasts on iTunes. The story keeps a nice pace and creates a vivid mental landscape. Just believable enough for the listener to temporarily suspend disbelief and enjoy a story well told. I would yell booyah into your ears if I could right now. I cannot tell you how much that was my focus when this story started. I am admittedly a Bigfoot dweeb, a geek, so I wanted to carefully walk that balance at the conception of this show, and to hear almost a year later from conception that's what I'm achieving, at least for some listeners, is just really, really heartwarming. Cykotica says, this podcast tells a strange, spooky story, well put together story, which I definitely enjoy. However, what really pulls me into the world are the human connections and natural dialogue between the characters that give the story a fully fleshed out feel, in addition to the freaky factor, which is pretty rare in the podcast world. Keep up the good work. Cykotica, thank you so much. People drive stories, not story elements. Those things get old really quickly. It's about those personal stories and those connections. Those two reviews really warmed my heart, because it means I'm doing what I set out to do from the beginning. So thank you to those of you who did leave those reviews, those 4 folks, and James for your email. To everyone else, please leave reviews. If it's a 5-star review, I'm going to actually make a meme out of it and put you all over Twitter. I really appreciate the folks who go to that extra extent and do that to help this show be found. On a programming note, by the time you get this episode, I will have already appeared on the Right Now podcast, spelled like the activity, the verb to write. The Right Now podcast with Sarah Werner. You can subscribe on any of your podcatchers, or you can listen in on any of your podcatchers. or go over to sarahwerner.com. I will put the link in the show notes. She's a absolutely wonderful host. I had a great conversation with her, but I'm a fan of her show. She's got a knack of pulling things out of writers to get them to share tips, and she's just incredibly encouraging. If any of you are aspiring writers, poets, you want to do your own audio drama, I cannot encourage you enough to check out her show, the Right Now podcast, and go back to her through her whole catalog. It's an absolutely encouraging show. It's just a wealth of information, tips, tools, and tactics. It's a beautiful show to have out there. We're very lucky to have Sarah give the world the gift that she does. So support her if that's what you're looking for. Or if you just like listening to writers and want to find new writers, great place to go do it. I'm also working very hard, wrapping up season 2, and I've already started asking patrons for their opinions on season 3. If you want input into this process, again, become a patron. I could even possibly get season 3 out earlier than what I'm aiming for right now if I reach the right patron goal. Again, I have a life to live outside of this, a job, a family, all of this stuff. The more patronage I have, the more time I could actually dedicate to this if you are enjoying the show and the direction where we're going. Patrons this month will get a exclusive episode only for $5 a month patrons and above. It's called Salt and Pepper. It's a short story. It's a love story, an LGBTQ love story. I had a great time writing it, got some very positive feedback on it, and decided, you know what, I'm going to put it in audio form and let my patrons hear it. So if you're a $5 or more per month patron, you will get Salt and Pepper this month. It'll also be available for purchase off of the Subject Found website. Now, let's get to the show credits. Subject Found is a Paul Sading production in association with Fate Crafter Studios. This episode was written and edited by me, Paul Sading. It was produced by Brian Bristol. I want to thank you for listening to episode 7 of it. And please be sure to join us in episode 8, 2 weeks from now, as Jared faces the death of his beloved companion and decides whether or not to continue his pursuit of Bigfoot. We are getting very close to the Choose Your Own Adventure portion of the season, where you get that alternate ending as a patron. To enjoy the benefits, to pick your own path and how you want to conclude the season, head over to patreon.com/Paul Sading, become a patron. If you have sightings that you would like to report, please email us at foundtapespodcast@gmail.com, and we'll make sure to get it into Jared's hands. You can find more information about the show at foundstories.com. Jared Strong was played by John McClain. You can find more of his work over at jmacvo.com or at dogandponystudio.net. Maria Strong is played by Heather Auden. And I would like to introduce Pete Lutz of Narada Radio, who played Lucas Thompson for us. You can find Pete and all of his audio dramas over at naradaradio.libsyn.com. I will also put those links in the show notes. Music in this episode was provided and used with permission by Chris Collins and Simon Croft. You can find Chris's work over at indiemusicbox.com and Simon's work over at soundcloud.com/Simon Croft Music. Of course, lastly, before we get out of here, I would like to encourage all of you, bum rush your podcatchers and leave 5-star rating and reviews for this show. Please help us be found. We only have 3 more episodes in the season before our long off season. I would love for this show to get a nice little bump before we head into that off season. You can make that possible, please. And thank you to everyone who does. If you have not, head over to Diary of a Madman at madmandiary.com. Check out that show. There's 7 more episodes in that season before that one is over with as well. Thank you to everyone who downloads and listens. Thank you to everyone who leaves a rating and review. And thank you especially to everyone who patrons this show. You all help me keep going. It means the world that you help me share my art with you. And until episode 8, peace.